All right. How are you doing today, Steve?
Good, Vander. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good myself today. All right, let's see here. Just gonna grab my questions. All right, so this is an interview about your position as a longtime rigger in the FM area. First question I'd like to ask is, how did you get started with this career?
I was working for Nocturnal, and well, I've rigged on and off over the years, um, even back when I was working in New York. But specifically here, I was working with Nocturnal, and they needed a rigger, and Zeb Wolf was the scheduler at the time, and he just asked me, "Do you want to do it?" And I just went from there. I just picked up and started really taking the positions full, more often.
That's awesome. Now, how would you describe a typical day in your position?
Uh, the short answer, hang the show and then take it down. The long answer is it starts a day rigging starts actually before the show day, where we take a look, we get the rigging plot ahead of time and look at it and make sure that we can fit it in the building or whatever the venue is. Make sure that we can fit it in, um, and kind of look at the requirements ahead of time. I come in the morning actually before anybody else starts and work with the show rigger, and we mark out the points. That's the where they want their chain motors, or basically where we connect their rig to our building. They mark that down on the stage, and we make adjustments as necessary. Um, and then we start to assemble everything, put it up in the air, go away, hopefully early, and then come back at the end of the night and you know let it down, pack everything back in the boxes, and send it on its way.
Awesome. What do you enjoy most about your career?
Um, each job, getting the satisfaction of walking in and putting something together and making it work right there on the spot. Um, with the time constraints that we have, and the satisfaction of seeing it successful, seeing the customers, the say Nocturnal in this case, because they would be a customer. I would call them a customer, and the band, and everybody involved, and giving them a good experience and making them happy, and making it possible for them to have a successful show.
Awesome. Thank you for that. What are the challenges associated with this job?
The challenges, well, even though you're doing the same thing all the time, there's a big unknown. Every time you walk in, you don't know 100% for sure what you're going to hang, and so the really challenging part is just once it rolls in the door, is figuring out what to do with what you're given, and how to connect connect their load to the structure.
Okay. And that's just with the difficulty with the day-to-day differences between each and every artist's rigging. I'm sure
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
very
yeah.
unique.
Right, every rig is different. Is For the most part, every rig is different. Um, things are in different positions. Um, the load, the size is different. The load is different. I mean, in Shields, where I do a lot of the work, we we've done everything from really simple two truss rigs, two trusses and a PA, which in aggregate weigh next to nothing, to the other end of the spectrum was when Hart came through. They had an enormous rig that was some 45,000 pounds in the air, and the number's significant because the limit for the roof in Shields is 50,000. So we were right up against the limit, and then um, on a smaller rig, a simpler rig, you have a little more freedom. You don't have to worry as much about limitations. But on something like Heart, we had to look at what we were doing and make sure that you weren't overloading any single beam, and making sure that it was all spread out, and making sure you're staying within the design limitations of the roof.
Awesome. That's very insightful. Thank you for that. What are some suggestions you would have for someone interested in this field?
Um, Pay attention in math class.
Yeah.
That's one of those things when you're going through school. You kind of you take some of these courses like math, and you look at it and you say, I'm not going to use any of this stuff. Why are they even teaching it to me? And it turns out that a lot of it ends up being useful. And if you don't know it, then you end up having to research it on the spot, and you have to figure out a solution. The biggest thing, you need the math. You've got to work really hard, take every opportunity that comes before you, um, and network. Meet as many people as you can, so that you can get your name out there. And because when they set up jobs, it's so common for people to use the folks that they know. You go back to who you know, and because you trust them, and you're familiar with them.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get that. Networking is very important. That's with any career. And you know, other than that, I'd like to ask, how does your job impact other people?
Um, well, it brings happy the audience a whole lot of happiness.
Oh yeah.
It'll you know it allows the performers to do their job well. Actually, it allows everybody to do their jobs. For the audience, it's being there and being happy and enjoying the music. For the performers, it's putting on the show, and spreading their art to the world. For the crew, it's making possible for them to do the band crew or the tour crew. It makes it possible for them to do their job, put it and do the show. And for the hands, it makes it possible for them to set the show up and tear it down and do their job. So it's it's very much a key part of any show. And in fact, and I don't know if you were going to even ask this, but I'm just going to go right into it. It's The rigging department is extremely important, because if you have to fly equipment for a show, which is what pretty much everybody does now, as opposed to when you used to ground stack your PAs and all that years and years and years ago. When um, if the riggers can't get it together and they can't get their job done, the show won't go up. And if we're really, really slow, they don't have enough time to get the rig in the air and then do their sound checks and prepare for doors. So we can, us successfully completing our job is super critical to the success of any show.
Right, and for safety reasons all around.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. The safety is a big part of it too, because um, you don't want to kill anybody. You don't want anything to fall out of the air. You don't want to damage the building, damage the roof, because you can do that if you hang too much of a load in one place.
Oh yeah.
So just, safety is critical.
Right on. And do you have a most memorable gig in recent memory?
Most memorable gig? It's funny. I was just looking at my calendar, and just to go back and see what I'd done. Um, One of the most memorable ones was actually Weird Al when he was at Bluestem 10 years ago.
Okay.
I was I was the one of the downriggers for that show, and then I was on show call, and I was on the video crew. I was a cable pager for they did an opening bit where he came for at Blue Stem. He came out of the garage underneath the stage and all the way around the stage and, up these stairs and up a walk and everything to the stage. And I'm basically running backwards in front of him, trying to keep ahead of the camera operator and just madly coiling up cable as we went.
Yeah.
And that was a fun experience.
Yeah. No,
And
that.
it was a great show once he got up there.
Oh yeah. It makes for an interesting day when you end up in these unique situations, and
Hmm.
that's some of my favorite parts about being in live sound. Obviously, me as a stagehand and local crew to
Yeah.
the FM area.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna circle back to one question I asked earlier about the nature of the job. So in the rigging department, what are the positions?
Um, there's basically two positions. You have you have upriggers, which would be the riggers who climb up, who are up in the roof, as the name would suggest, and they're climbing on the beams and catwalks. And they're the ones who are actually connecting the points to the building. They're the ones kind of wrapping the steel around the beams and connecting the shackles, the hardware, and whatnot. And then you have downriggers, who are the people down on the ground. And sometimes folks will look at it and say, the riggers are the ones up in the air. And actually, the riggers are everybody doing the job, because to do a point or hang a motor, um, it takes two people. It takes somebody up on top to do the connection, and it takes somebody down on the bottom to send up on the ground to send up the chain and send up the steel and make sure things are positioned correctly. So it's definitely a team effort, and it takes both folks. And sometimes the upriggers climb on the beams, sometimes they'll go up in a man lift or a bucket truck. It just kind of depends on the situation.
Oh yeah,
And
for sure.
sometimes you'll have uh two up and one up in a man lift and one down, maybe two up in the roof and one down, or multiples of that, four up, four up, two down, six up, three down, and so on. Just
Oh,
depends on the size of the show.
okay, right on. Well, thank you for that. And before I let you go, Steve, I got one more question for you, and that question is, what keeps you coming back?
Um, I just I enjoy it. Enjoy the process, the work itself, the process of hanging a show or taking it down. I enjoy the work environment. Um, all the hands on the crew, the band crews that come through. It's just the whole thing is just is very positive, and leaves me with a good feeling at the end of every job. And it's one of those things where it's it's so much fun that even though it is a lot of hard work and you do have to be very careful, it doesn't feel like work when you're doing it.
That's awesome, Steve. I'm glad you feel that way about it. And working in live sound myself, I do relate to this feeling that every gig there's always this potential of positive interaction, and that's top to bottom.
Hmm. Yep. And
Right on.
even for me now, because I've been around for a while and so I've been working professionally since the 90s, um, I know I've met quite a few people out there. So now it's fun just seeing tours come through and seeing who I can meet, and seeing who I run into again.
Yeah, and returning clients, things like that. That's
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
fun. Seeing people that
Yeah.
you've worked with before, and sometimes a tour will be like, "Oh, I remember you, and I like you." So that's a good
Hmm.
feeling.
Hmm. Yeah. Or old coworkers, from companies I've worked at in the past. So yeah, it's a nice experience.
Awesome. All right. Well, you know what, Steve? I think that will conclude our 15-minute interview. I thank you so much for your time today, and I really appreciate every question you answered. You gave me a lot of good insight, and I really appreciate your time today.
Okay. Well, you're welcome, Evander. Thank you. I enjoyed helping you out. Now I'm gonna go off to the lights. We have today's our last day of Mean Girls the musical.
Oh, right on. Mean Girls the
Yeah,
musical. That sounds fun.
yeah. It's based on the loosely based on the movie.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. It
Yeah,
sounded
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Right on.
Cool.
Well, you have a good day, Steve.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye bye, Vander.